3.1, Algebra 2 through 3.3, test cheat sheet. Just to give you an example of some of the things that will be on there. Negative 6b squared times negative 2b plus 6. Okay? This is one thing that will be on there. What this is a monomial multiplied by a binomial. Okay? You're going to have to be able to tell me these things. Yeah?
Is it on this worksheet?
Huh?
Is it on this worksheet?
No, every worksheet is different. So you're going to have to take notes and then use your notes to do the worksheet. So sorry about that. Everybody has a different worksheet. Okay? And so you'll have to be able to tell me that this is a quadratic monomial. Quadratic because it's a second degree polynomial, right? This is a linear binomial. Linear because it's got a first degree polynomial. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, let's talk about what we're doing. All we're doing is this, in this case, because it's a monomial, I call it the half clamshell. Right? It's distribution. Okay? I'm taking all of this paper and giving it to everyone on the block. The whole paper. Right? Including the negative. Okay? So, negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. B squared times B. Well, there's 2 here, there's 1 here, that means there's 3. It's that simple. You're adding exponents. Okay? Then, I will take this and bring it through to that one. Negative 6 times 6 is minus 36. B squared times no B. Well, that means there's still 2 of those b's, right? So it's still b squared. All right? And that, if you look at your sheet, the answers are on the back page. And it lets me know 12b cubed minus 36b squared is the answer. And that's it. Now, if I were to label this, I would label this a binomial because it's 2 pieces. So this is a binomial. Okay, and the 3 here tells me that it's a cubic. So it's a cubic binomial. Okay? A cubic binomial. Alright, so that's the first type of problem that will be on the test. The next type of problem that will be on the test will be 2 binomials. Okay? 2 binomials. So like 2n minus 6, right?
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if I did 2b, it came out to be 12b cubed. How come 36b is a cube too?
Well, okay, because this is a b squared times a b, so there's a 1 here, right?
Okay.
And this is really b to the 0, right? And so that would mean 0 plus 2 is 2.
Okay.
Good question. Okay? Alright, 2n minus 6 times 6n plus 3. Okay? And so we're going to multiply these. And this is what I call a clamshell because you go on the top and you do the bottom, right? The top is this times this, which is 2 times 6 is 12. N times n is n squared, right? 2n times 3 would just be a positive 6n, right? And then I change my color so that I can see what's going on. And I'm going to take this times this, right? And so negative 6 times 6n is negative 36n. But this, instead of putting it out here, I'm going to show you a little trick I made up last year. I can put it right here, negative 36n. And I keep it in those n columns, right? I keep my n squares in the n square columns. I keep my n's in the n columns. I keep my numbers in the numbers column. See how that's starting to look like a clamshell?
Yeah.
This is half clamshell that you find on the beach because the seagulls already ate it, right? And this is more like a clamshell that you find in your soup before you hopefully, it's not open before you cook it, right? Because then you find that in the garbage, right? So you don't want to cook an open clam because it's dead. If it's dead, it's poisonous. Right? So, negative 6 times 3, negative 18. Okay? Now, if you cook it and it stays closed, you don't want to open it. That's a bad thing. You get sick most of the time. Now, because they're in its column, I could just add up everything that's in the column. This doesn't have anything, so it comes down 12n squared. This becomes minus 30n, because one's a negative and one's a positive, right? So you're actually finding the difference between the two, right? And then this just comes down, minus 18. And we call that a trinomial, right? 3 pieces. A trinomial. Right? And this second degree tells me that it's a quadratic. A quadratic trinomial.
Where do you get the 36 n from the 6 times 6n?
Yeah, so the negative 6 times the 6n is 36n. Negative 36n. Right? Negative and a positive make a negative. Yeah? So far, so good?
What does it help?
On.
Okay.
Right now you should focus on just taking the notes, not trying to do the one on your worksheet yet. Unfortunately, because you guys missed last week, I would really focus on just the notes, taking notes. Now I'm going to write this again, but because it's up here, I might as well walk through it. And then if you're watching this at home, you can pause it, but I'm going to write it again. And what it is you should have in your notes that a 0 degree is really called a constant. You remember that from the first test, right? We never called it a 0th degree, but we called it a constant when it didn't have an x, right? So an example of this would be like, well, it looks like this, right? F of x equals a c, or a number, right? So an example of that would be y equals 5. Does that make sense? This one, the linear, well, that is this guy. Remember that? F of x equals x, right? 2x plus 2, right? That's a linear function, right? So the second degree polynomial, or a quadratic, right? Well, that goes back to this guy, right? The smiley face one. right? Whereas f of x is equal to x squared. Remember that from the first test? Okay? So, none of these are different except when we get up to the quartic and quintic. The cubic looks like that, right? And its f of x is equal to x cubed. The quartic is f of x is equal to x to the fourth. Right? And it could have as many as 3 humps. So it could look like this. 1, 2, 3. Right? The quintic, it could have as many as 4 humps. So it could look like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And it would be f of x equals x to the fifth. That's a quartic. Okay? Now a monomial has one piece, 3x to the fifth. This is what we call a fifth degree monomial. A binomial has 2 pieces, x minus 2. Right? A trinomial has 3 pieces. 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 is a trinomial. 3 pieces. This we would call a quadratic trinomial because it has a power of 2. A quadratic trinomial. Anything more than 3 is just called a polynomial. Right? Poly meaning many. Okay? So many numbers. Many nomial, many numbers, many sets, many terms. Okay? This is 1 term. This is 2 terms. This is 3 terms. This is many terms, more than 3. Okay? So this is 4 terms, right? So that's more than 3. So that's a polynomial. It's what we call a 7th degree. 7th degree because the highest degree is 7. Right? 7th degree polynomial. Okay? The one thing to take into effect is when it's not a polynomial. It's not a polynomial if you have anything other than a positive integer as an exponent. Meaning, if you have it in the bottom, then what that really is a negative integer. That's not a polynomial. If you have x to the 1/2, that's not a polynomial because that's not an integer. Okay? So, you have to have positive integers for it to be a polynomial. It cannot be in the bottom of a fraction. The variable cannot be in the bottom of a fraction. It's not a polynomial at that point. Might be a function, but it's not a polynomial. Okay? Take it.
So is that f of x equals x 5?
Yeah. And that would be 5th degree quintic. Okay?
Where does that look?
Good so far?
Yes.
And should I show you one of the binomials versus a trinomial? And that's what I call a clamshell also. But it's a little bit harder. So another clamshell problem. Right? Another clamshell problem would be like, and you guys all have your answers on the back of your worksheets. Okay? So even though all your worksheets are different, you all have answers. Okay? So another type of problem. Yes. Count of Monte Cristo. So let's take a look here. We have 6n minus 8 times 2n squared plus 4n plus 2. Alright. So this is, what do we call this? What kind of, is this a monomial, binomial, trinomial? Binomial. Good. Is it linear, constant, quadratic? Linear. Good. Okay. Then what do we call this, Nathan? Is this a monomial, a binomial, or a trinomial? Perfect. Nice. And so what do we call it? Do we call it a linear, constant, quadratic, quartic?
Would it be the quadratic?
1/3 of the test done. Right there. Love it. See? You give me 80%, I promise you. You'll do well. Okay? Alright. Now we got to multiply these things. This can be hard, but just take your time. Colors are your friend. Okay? Right here, bam. 6 times 2, 12. N times n squared. So there's 1 here, there's 2 here. Yes. That means you have 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay? 6n times 4n. 24. N. How many here? How many here? 2. Very good. 6n times 2. 12n.
Oh, just kidding, 12n.
I'm going to put it right here. Plus 12. And I'm just going to move these down. Sorry. I want to give myself some space.
I get confused with lining them up.
Okay? So, now I'll change the color, okay? Use red. Negative 16n squared. So I'm going to put it with the n squared. Negative 16. And the reason I'm lining it up like that, because usually we just put it out here. Minus 16n squared, right? And then what I used to do is teach, underline them, collect like terms, right? But for a lot of students, it was very confusing on collecting the like terms, how to, right? So I started using this. So you can use either or. You can either bring it out like this way, or you can just line them up underneath, okay? I like lining it up because now I know that this is just an n, right? And so how many n's? 4 times negative 8?
32, negative.
Negative 32, good. Okay, and then, you see how that looks like a real clamshell now? That's where that whole clamshell thing came from, right? Okay, and negative 8 times 2? Negative 16. And the beauty of this is, I can add these up. And these just come down. 12n cubed, right? And then what's these two? What's these two? So 24 minus 16.
8.
Yes, 4 and 4 is 8. So positive 8n squared. And then 12 minus 32, or the difference between 12 and 32?
44.
Minus 20, right? We're not adding them because there's a difference there. One's positive, one's negative, right? And then we just bring this down. Okay? And if I were to ask you what this is, what kind of polynomial is this? Is this a monomial, binomial, trinomial, or polynomial?
Polynomial.
Good. What type is it? Is it linear, cubic, quartic?
Cubic.
There you go. So it's a cubic polynomial. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So that's